Greetings and very welcome back to my humble neck of the YouTube woods. We are gathered here today, guys, basically with my two boglin buddies here and little stealthy grumpy Gumba here to celebrate two kind of small channel milestones. The first one is 200,000 views, and the second one is 450 videos. Um, which is strange to say, to be honest with you. Although I've been uploading very casually for about 14 years, 14, 15 years, something like that. It still is strange to say there's 450 videos on the channel. Time is flying. And also the 200,000 views is a bit crazy as well, to be honest with you. So we decided to just keep up this little tradition of the my gaming history shenanigans. And basically, I think I've done 4 so far, and it's loosely in a chronological order. And this time we are going to talk about, and I actually have the console in front of me for once, which is quite rare, the PlayStation 3. Now, this isn't my original PlayStation 3. I had the big chunky Titan kind of one that was out first. But eventually that one kind of gave up the ghost, and my good buddy George got me this one, which continued my journey until she happily retired in the glorious retirement drawer. Um, Traditionally, I would give my console and games to other family members so they get more love and more action. But I think everybody had a PlayStation 3, so this one just stayed with me and got to relax and rest in the drawer, the glorious drawer of retirement. Um, you know, there's another system as well I want to talk about with this one, and that is the PC, because back then I was kind of jumping between the two of them at various points, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the PlayStation 3 had the strongest start. I don't think it had a particularly stellar or phenomenal library early days. I could be wrong. Let me know. I remember playing Resident Evil 5 and Metal Gear Solid 4. Both brilliant games. I won't go too much into individual titles. I do have my trusty notepad here with some games that I'd like to mention over the course of that time. But we'll go in quite loose with them, because if you go into detail, we'll end up chatting forever. You know yourself. So I do have fond memories of Resident Evil 5 and Metal Gear Solid 4, and this is pre-trophies being implemented. And the reason I remember that is because I was roaming through the city centre on a gorgeous sunny Dublin day, not too far afield from the one we're having right now. And this game series that kind of sucked me into the PC is known to be one of the most addictive video game series of all time, so it's probably not too shocking. But it was in and around the Burning Crusade expansion release of World of Warcraft. And I remember seeing that kind of Blood Elf cardboard and advertisements in the city centre, and I went in and I had a little bit of a gander at the back of the case, and it intrigued me because I'd never played a massive multiplayer online role playing game type. So I said, I'll go for it. So I brought it home, and I remember my friends coming over and visiting, and they were kind of making fun of me a little bit because they felt that this was a little bit too nerdy, a game series. Oh, they were all gamers in their own right, don't get me wrong. But I think it was just the fact that this was such a traditional fantasy looking game, that you had mages and warriors and paladins and priests and orcs and humans and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, that didn't last too long, because eventually we all ended up playing and making a guild together called Irish Honor, and that kind of sparked essentially a decade long World of Warcraft adventure experience for myself, and lots of fun memories with them as well. While we're talking about PC though, there's other titles I'd like to mention, which will be Command and Conquer Red Alert, Yuri's Revenge, which I have loads of fond memories of. Me and my friends would take turns on that title, and it's probably my favourite real-time strategy game of all time to this day. Um, a little bit of Tiberian Sun as well on the Command and Conquer front. Age of Mythology, The Sims 1 and 2, and Medieval, and some Zoo Tycoon slash theme park orientated games as well I dabbled in, you know. But truth be told, World of Warcraft blew all of them out of the water in terms of my PC gaming, you know, sessions and whatnot. You know, just really sucked me in, particularly because they implemented a achievement system, and I had so much fun picking off various achievements in each category on World of Warcraft, whether it was story related or map related or PvP and PvE, battleground, you name it, dungeons, raids. I loved it all, you know. Um, but eventually, what had happened is, and my PlayStation 3 was just gathering dust once Warcraft got its Azerothian hooks into me, so to speak. My friend George came over because he was trying to convince me to play a survival horror game that he had a great time with, and he knew I had a soft spot for survival horrors. The game in question was Dead Space, and he came over and we both went down and got stuck into Dead Space, and brilliant game. Loved it, loved the atmosphere, loved the story, the whole necromorphs, the shooting the limbs mechanics, and so on. Um, Really creepy, solid survival horror game, and that kind of reignited my survival horror instincts a little bit, and it also just got my attention back to the PlayStation 3 a little bit, particularly because at this stage, trophies had popped. So trophies were popping while we were playing through the various chapters of Dead Space. That kind of encouraged me to go back to Resident Evil 5 and Metal Gear Solid 4, which had patches in them now where trophies were installed. And that really, you know, that's one of the defining moments in gaming for me, is the PlayStation 3 ushering in that trophy era. Um, Really helped to suck me back in, you know, particularly on titles that I was fond of and was just looking for little kind of various challenges and see if you could 100% them and so on. And I eventually went on to start the Platinum Trophy Moment series, which is probably the most prevalent series on my channel, really, when you think of it. I think we're up to 142 Platinum Trophy Moments at the moment, and I've basically catalogued them all. Um, I got 29, I believe, before the PlayStation 3 retired. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 29, loosely. Um, and the titles I'd like to mention is Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite. Great series, and PlayStation 3 was my introduction to that series. I only ended up platinuming the Bioshock 2, but I liked it so much that I actually went back to it and played the PlayStation 4 version. It was free on PlayStation Plus, I think, and got the platinum again. It's rare that I replay games. I do traditionally prefer to move on to another one rather than replay old games, even if I'm very fond of them. Um, the Mass Effect series, my nephew Tom really wanted me to give Mass Effect a try, and it took me far too long. After I wanted to go in chronological order and keep the narrative going, you know. So I was looking for Mass Effect 1, and it took me far too long to realise that it was actually an Xbox exclusive at the time. So I played Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 on the PlayStation 3. As fate would have it, I did end up getting the Legendary Edition on PlayStation 4, and I got to play Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 again on that, getting platinums with it. Borderlands 2 was my first introduction to kind of a first person shooter, kind of a looter shooter title, which is very good on co op. Lots of fun with that. Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2, my first introduction to that series. Lots of fun. I got the platinum on Origins, not on Dragon Age 2, but still thoroughly enjoyed the games. Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which is my introduction to the Fallout series. Lots of fun memories on that. Got the platinum on both of them. Skyrim, very similar. You know, Bethesda games. You can just kind of get lost in that world, roaming around, interacting with the different characters and story arcs and so on. The Dishonored series, lots of fun. Dead Space 1, 2, and 3 I played on the PlayStation 3. That series can get a little bit, it gets criticized kind of, it's like a mini vacuum of the Resident Evil series, and the more it went on, they accused it of being a little bit more action horror orientated, which does have an element of truth, but nonetheless, I enjoyed all three. Yeah, great game. Isaac Clarke is some boyo, isn't he? He's some cosmic engineering survival legend because he's the main protagonist of all three of those games, and he manages to survive, necromorph carnage in all of them. Far Cry 3, my introduction to the Far Cry series, very fun platinum. Fond memories of doing the multiplayer trophies on that, which were quite difficult to be fair, with my nephew Patrick. Dragon's Dogma, another great game. Had no expectations for it. Enjoyed the pawn system, and the combat system was kind of pretty unique. GTA 4 and 5. Um, I basically just cleared GTA 4 and moved on, I think. GTA 5, I did get the platinum on it. By the time I reached level 100 on online mode, I retired the game and never played a GTA game since. I know GTA 5 is very popular, came out on PlayStation 4 and PC and PlayStation 5. I never touched it again after that. I just overloaded on it. Um, you know, One of the things that kind of irked me, I got the ending where Franklin, Trevor, and Michael. It's been so long now that, correct me if I'm wrong, but they banded together in the end and went up against the powers that be, and I thought that was a decent ending. Um, but in order to get the platinum, I had to kind of get top ranks on various missions and get the alternative ending. And the alternative ending was very disappointing to me, narratively, because I just felt it went against the characters up until that point. Like Trevor, very popular character. I don't like him at all. Him killing Johnny was a terrible start, and it just went downhill from there. But Trevor is like this, psychopathic bully character who's kind of a loose cannon, big temper, dangerous guy, who you kind of don't mess with, very unpredictable, unhinged. And when you're playing as Michael in the final level and you decide to kill Trevor, he kind of runs away cowardly, and he's kind of driving away. It's a chase, and he's kind of fearful, and I just kind of went against the character that we'd kind of come to know up until this point, and he ends up being burned to death, I believe. But even worse than that, and you can let me know if these are controversial takes or not. Um, but Michael's character is kind of shown throughout the game to be, kind of a survival at all costs character. That when push comes to shove, him and his family are the priority, and he'll betray his friends and allies and so on and so forth, if need be, you know. And he mentions as such over the course of the game. But I specifically remember with Franklin, when you chase Michael down, he's hanging off a ledge, as you do in these types of games. And I decided to have a change of heart and take his hand, and not kill him. Basically, he proceeds to headbutt you and fall to his death when you go to actually pick him up, which to me just went completely against the character up until that point. I don't know. Let me know if that's if you feel differently. But that was such a stupid and strange thing to do from that character's perspective in my mind. Off on a tangent, even though I said I wouldn't talk too much about the games. Next up is Metro Last Light. It's a good first-person shooter kind of horror game, set in Russia. Then we've Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, kind of my first kind of voyage into those type of games. Lots of fun. Didn't get the platinum on Heavy Rain, but did on Beyond Two Souls. Call of Duty Black Ops and Black Ops 2 deserves a mention as well. Although I do casually like the stories in these games, it was mostly the multiplayer element that I remember fondly back then, because there was still a good few of my friends playing at the time, and I'd have to get the cognitive juices going. But those kind of small maps that were very popular, the likes of Nuketown, and I believe it was called Hijacked, in Black Ops 2. It was basically the ship, the cruise ship level. Lots of fun on those small maps with friends, just leaving claymores around and killing each other and having a good time. The Telltale games, PlayStation 3 was my introduction to them. So the likes of The Walking Dead, um, The Wolf Among Us, Game of Thrones, and so on and so forth. Really strong narrative titles. Minimal gameplay was still a lot of fun. Red Dead Redemption 2, another kind of Rockstar game, or Red Dead Redemption rather. Um, Really popular game. I'm not overly gone on it. Great game, but it just didn't resonate with me as much as it did with others. I much prefer Red Dead Redemption 2. What always irked me about Red Dead Redemption, the original, is John's character actually. It's quite clear that the Pinkertons and the government are the biggest, baddest gang around, and they're the main villains of the story. They essentially kidnap his family and force him to hunt down his old brother in arms, his old comrades, as unsavory as they may be to various degrees. Um, but it always irked me that John just essentially conforms. Like the redemption isn't great, that he goes from a criminal life to basically just conforming to a generic family life. But when these people kidnap his family and threaten him and so on and so forth, he just goes off and smiles and nods and does their bidding essentially. Um, and then in the end, he gets treated just as those former gang members did get treated, as in they were betrayed and killed off rather coldly. So it always irked me that he just, I don't know if he felt that they were just too powerful and untouchable and so on, but it was very clear that they were the ones that were actively, objectively wronging him and his family. And he never once actually went against them and tried to deal with them, the actual antagonists of the series. But again, it's probably a strange take that I have. Still a great game. And Red Dead Redemption 2 even more so. I know that's talking about the PlayStation 4, but I was very skeptical when they announced that this was a prequel. But the Vanderling gang are just phenomenal. The dynamic that they have, the camp conversations alone are fascinating. And every character has, so much fleshed out strengths and weaknesses and flaws and so on. And just brilliant game. Highly recommended. And I have Assassin's Creed 2 here because I think that's the only platinum I got in the Assassin's Creed series. It's also my favourite Assassin's Creed, to be fair. It's Ezio Auditore Firenze and his uncle Mario. Um, so yeah, I think that's most of the PlayStation 3 titles and PC titles. Resident Evil 6, God, that was PlayStation 3 as well. Another controversial title, I suppose. It was a very ambitious game, Resident Evil 6 to me, like just 4 fully fleshed out campaigns, with Pierce and Chris and Leon and Helena and Ada and the kind of nameless agent that they threw in to be a co-op partner, and Jake and Sherry, the Birkin and Wesker connection being reinvigorated. Yeah, I was accused of being way too action orientated and so on and so forth, and I still have very fond memories of playing through most of the campaigns with my nephew, and I did end up getting the platinum on that as well. Still a very fun game. The story is actually quite dark when you look into it. It's just a pity they didn't stick to the traditional kind of file mode where you could read them a little bit easier and get the narrative that way. Um, So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. While on a mini ethical take, Resident Evil 5 is an interesting one as well because Chris does something in that game, and it's just sparked a memory of I'm watching uh, the good Sir Saber Duel Gaming and his nephew, the Gaming Lord 04, are basically doing a co-op playthrough of Resident Evil 5, and they reach that point very early on where Chris allows the secret agent who risked life and limb to go undercover and arm both Chris and Sheva. Um, he ends up being executed publicly by the Mangini. And Sheva basically goes to intervene, and Chris kind of puts his hand up to stop her, and stands there and watches as this person gets executed, which I just think is absolutely horrible move from Chris's point of view, you know, and just kind of flew in the face of the character up until that point. It's a fellow BSAA agent. If it was anybody he cared about remotely, he would try to intervene and do the right thing and save that person, even if it was just an absolute innocent person that he didn't know. It was just such a strange section, and to add insult to injury, straight after the guy gets executed, the Mangini with the microphone ends up spotting Sheva and Chris anyway, and they end up fighting them all, regardless, you know. But that definitely irked me. It was definitely one of the worst things that Chris has done in the Resident Evil series, in my opinion. You know, that irked me a hell of a lot more than the traditional, laughed at boulder punching moment in a volcano. To be honest. I still have real fond memories of Resident Evil 5. Still I can still envisage Jill's headstone flashing up on screen and me having a heart attack thinking that Jill Valentine was dead. It's obviously Wesker's swan song in the series, along with Excella and Irving. So yeah, I can understand the criticisms, but overall, I still had a hell of a good time at Resident Evil 5. You know. So I think that's everything, guys. I have waffled on for a good 20 minutes apparently. I shall love yous and leave yous. Make sure that you look after yourselves and each other. Be kind to all kinds and slán of value. Howdy guys, just a very quick one. I noticed at a glance while watching that video that I completely forgot to mention the name of that agent in Resident Evil 5, which is Reynard Fisher. And also I mistakenly said Michael was hunting down Trevor at the end of that alternative ending in GTA 5 way back when, whereas in fact it's always Franklin. I think the sum was getting to me, you know. I did notice a fair few little linguistical errors in that video, you know. But also I forgot to mention that if there is indeed any heavy hitters or games that you guys were really personally fond of on the PlayStation 3 and indeed the PC, please feel free to let me know in the comments, because I do make a little bit of a mental note of these titles that are mentioned, and I do enjoy going back and playing games that I've missed out on way back when, you know, potentially. So that's it, guys. I shall love yous and leave yous. Make sure you look after yourselves and each other. Be kind to all kinds and slán of value.